I really want to welcome everyone to this. You're not the only one dancing. Sorry, a little ADHD. So I really want to welcome everyone to our COP kickoff meeting. My name is Tina Taylor. I'm a non-resident fellow at Urban Institute, and I work with this fabulous team, but by all aspects, I'm a wee member of the team that does astronomical work around the CDC grant and really helps all of you in your CDC endeavors. We are really excited about this COP kickoff meeting, and I am very lucky. I offered for Kristen to introduce the meeting, so as a result, I get to tell you this. But we really want to thank you for coming to the meeting, and in response for that thank you, we are offering everyone a $10 Starbucks gift card. So Luis is going to put a Google form in the chat, and then if everyone could add their name and email, we're going to send out a $10 Starbucks gift card so that to thank you, but also for you to enjoy, because we know this is hard work and everyone needs a bit of a break. I'm going to talk very little, wanting to welcome you and say, what is a COP? And I will say that introductory music that I first put on actually came from one of the COP's meetings that I go to, and it's put together. I talk really fast, I'm going to slow down. It was put together with the African Diaspora COP, and one of the COP members put it together to open the meetings and really to create that communal space. And I think it's a great way to start this meeting, but also a great way to start kind of the purpose of what COPs are. The work that CDC has asked you to do is incredibly hard work. It takes a lot of energy. At the best of times, there's a lot of pushback against people getting vaccines of any type. But I think particularly now with all the misinformation and fear and other aspects, it makes your job that much harder. And really with the focus on trying to eliminate, not just decrease, but eliminate inequities to make sure all of our populations are as healthy and whole as possible, it makes that work much more difficult because of past history and past mistrust. So COPs are really a place for folks to come together and share their successes, share their difficulties, ask for advice. It's a place you can come with your authentic self and have unformed thoughts and have partners to share to put them together so that they become incredibly impactful and powerful messages and techniques. But it's also a place to breathe. And so part of that with the music and other aspects is that breathing. And sometimes, groups get to do fun things that just, they get to share with one another, they get to fortify one another, they get to kind of meditate a little bit. And so all of those things, COP should be a place for you to breathe, to share, to come together in your shared journey to really seek and establish the outcomes we would like to see. And yes, CDC's vaccine is a piece of it, but we all know there's much more to that in terms of the work that you do. So with that, what we wanted to do was have each steering committee really tell a little bit about their particular COP, and then we're going to go into some really exciting activities in the breakout room and have a presentation. I want us to note that we are taping the first part and the last part of this conversation, but the breakout rooms will not be taped because we really want you to be able to speak as freely as possible. So with that, I am going to pass it on to the steering committee members, and starting with because I saw her, and I know she's here, we're going to start with the Asian American, Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian, American Indian, and Alaskan Native steering committee. I swear I saw Tracy. There she's.
Everyone, my name is Tracy Sun, and I sit on the steering committee for the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander.
I have hearing problems at the best of times, so maybe me, but can everyone else hear her?
I can hear her. Might be you, Kima.
Maybe I should take out.
Better? Okay. Yeah, so I sit on the steering committee for the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, and American Indian, Alaska Native Committee of Practice. And I'm also a program manager of COVID response at the Asian Pacific Islander American Health Forum. We're a national health advocacy organization serving AIN and HPI communities across the nation, territories, and US API. And so when I first joined the community of practice, I was honestly a bit apprehensive just because the breadth of different ethnicities and tribes and cultures, etc. Even saying our name takes almost like 2 minutes. And so it's a very important point to recognize that our communities are all very unique and different. But I think we've really cultivated such a safe and beneficial space to come together and learn from one another. meaningful collaboration and partnership is so important for the work we do. And COVID has definitely brought together organizations and groups that wouldn't have been in the same room before, even seen here today. And I know with our groups and personally, we've gotten the chance to form new relationships with different organizations and also strengthen and deepen existing partnerships. We've gotten the chance to discuss different events and resources, strategies, lessons learned, challenges. So I just want to thank everyone who attends our meetings and shares their knowledge. I know we're all very busy and have so much going on, and it never really stops, but it really means a lot to get the chance to come together once a month and create community together. And I really look forward to year 2 and appreciate this kickoff meeting bringing all groups together and even more collaboration and partnership across communities. And again, respectfully, we all come from different backgrounds and one size never really fits all, but I'm also excited to explore how we can be in solidarity with one another and team up and become even more effective. Thanks.
Yeah. Next, I saw him here too. Next, I'm going to pass it on to the Hispanic, Latino, Latina, Latinx group. Yes,
Is that gonna be me? Okay.
yes, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm
Where
Lance
can we find
Collar, the National Alliance for Hispanic Health, and I joined the steering committee for the community of practice just this month, so I've just been to one meeting so far. I've been on the community of practice for several months now and attended several meetings. At our first meeting, the featured speaker was a woman in Colorado who was like an amazing person who her focus was doing outreach in Spanish-speaking churches. And it seemed like she was covering the whole state of Colorado with her vaccine outreach. And it was really inspiring for everyone to see her enthusiasm and the breadth of work that she was doing. It started like a small project and it just kind of mushroomed into something much larger. So I think many of us on that call were very inspired to see the work that she was doing. And so I work for a national organization, so I'm not boots on the ground. So I'm not like directly serving our constituents, but I'm working with our subrecipients and with our organization, with our PAVE project to facilitate their work and make sure that they can reach as many people as possible. So meeting with other people both in the steering committee as well as in the community of practice is very interesting to learn about the work that others are doing and what they're doing specifically to reach our target community. And although our acronym is not as hard to say as Asian Pacific Islander and other groups in that community of practice, Hispanics are not a single group either. They come from many different countries, and each with their own culture and variations in the Spanish language as well. So the groups that we work with also need to be culturally sensitive to the variations in what it means to be Hispanic or Latino, based on their countries of origin and their cultures and how long they've been assimilated in the United States as well. So anyway, it's been interesting and enjoyable to work with others and learn from others in the community of practice and on the steering committee.
Thank you. And that's an important point. I mean, we mush people together, but all of the groups are quite diverse internally and have to respect that not one size fits all, as Tracy mentioned. So last but not least, and the maker of that playlist, which is much longer, maybe we'll have other time, but the African-American African Diaspora Steering Group. And I think Mary Catherine, you were going to speak.
Hi everyone. It's great to see some familiar faces. I hope you're all doing well. And yes, happy Hispanic Heritage Month. I am here representing the African-American/African Diaspora Group. And I really appreciate what others have shared about our community of practice. I think even though we might be focusing on different racial or ethnic priority groups, we are still very much using the same process. And so my experience with the group has definitely been very similar as what others have said. I think for me, the question with a community of practice group is always, I have so many things on my calendar and so much to do. Is it really worth it for me to join that call, in our case, on a Thursday afternoon for an hour? And the reason that I have arrived at yes to that is because being part of the community of practice, our calls are not the same as my other work calls. Yes, we have an agenda. Yes, we have things that we want to accomplish during the meeting, but they're really much more based on conversation about how we are doing what we're doing, what we wish we could be doing, what others might be doing that's similar or complementary, and how we can learn from each other. Rather than considering these calls to be something else to do, I consider them a break from what I am doing, a paid break, which is super, super nice about it. So it's very helpful to learn from what all the different organizations are doing. We've also had more than one chance to laugh together. And there is very little that is as restorative, especially in work where we're feeling frustrated a lot of the time, except when we have stories and the opportunity to share with our peers and just look at the humor in situations. So it's been a great experience for me. I'm really happy to be part of the group, and I'm thankful for all of you for joining the call today and contributing as well.
Thank you. And we all from Urban also want to thank everyone for joining the call. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Taekwon to introduce the breakout groups. And again, those will not be taped.
Thank you, Kima. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to kind of bring it back to the top of the meeting. I believe when Kima introduced the idea of community, as we all understand, all of us are in different communities of practice. However, in and of itself, I think we are community, as you can see right here. Communities can be defined in different ways, whether that's, by population, different things that people may have in common. I think there are a couple of things that unite us, and everybody is pretty much, we could say, suffering from different aspects of COVID fatigue. So with that being said, in these breakout rooms, what we really wanted to discuss were strategies that your organizations have implemented and used to keep the need for COVID vaccinations at the forefront of the conversation. So I can drop this question into the chat.
Yes, go for it.
Great. Hey, everyone. My name is Ian Hill. I'm with the Urban Institute's Health Policy Center, and I help facilitate the Asian American, Pacific Islander, and Hawaiian Native, American Indian, and Alaska Native community of practice. And I'm also directing the PAVE Promising Practice Grant Program, and I see some familiar faces here from that effort. For the next 5 minutes, I just wanted to facilitate a little bit of a debrief for reporting out from the groups. I'd love to invite all of you participants to share any thoughts and reactions that you might have. It could be a big takeaway that you want to take back to your team. It could be something new that you learned. It could be, something that just surprised you. So please raise your hand if you'd like to share, or put your thoughts in the chat as well. That's an option too. Would anyone like to kick things off?
I will. I'm continually impressed by the different kinds of organizations that that I meet in these groups. I know that there was at some point a list that went out of all the grantees, but it's really helpful to see the many areas in which PAVE partners are doing other kinds of work in their community. And my small group, we are spread across 3 states. But everyone is doing something that's slightly different. We would have loved more time to talk about how we're getting into the promotion of the bivalent vaccine, because I think that's really the hot topic right now.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. Good to see you again. Who else would like to chime in? Anyone? I don't see any hands raised.
Nancy Lucero, apologies if I mispronounced your name, shared in the chat that storytelling has helped promote COVID vaccination. Does anybody have any thoughts about that? Who else was in that group, or any want to respond to that if that resonates with you?
Hi, Nancy. This is Maria McPhail from Vida Senior Centers. I think the storytellings are very powerful, especially when it comes from people, target population that you want to outreach. We, as Vida Senior Centers, we serve people 60 years and older in the Washington, D.C. area. So we started putting storytelling moments up there, and it became very popular, and people listened because these were seniors that didn't know much about the vaccine, didn't know much about COVID-19, and yet they were willing to follow, you know, the lead of the health authorities to make sure that they were doing the right thing. So we nominated this project, Seniors Leading the World to the New Normality, and it was an amazing initiative. So I completely support the storytelling. It's very powerful.
Very nice. Very nice.
Can I ask a question? Was that storytelling by video? How was the storytelling done?
What we did, we selected a couple of seniors that had this leadership type of characteristic, and we put them on video, and they spoke in Spanish, and we add subtitles to the videos and some nice effect. Homemade videos. We didn't do anything professional, but they came out really nice. So they had subtitles, and the videos were very short. And basically what they were saying was why people should be getting vaccinated. So, you know, to protect my grandchildren, to protect my kids. I'm not scared of COVID because I'm gonna get vaccinated, and all these type of messages went out, and it worked. After a few months, we got 93% of our seniors community fully vaccinated. When I say fully, before the booster came.
And how was the video distributed? I mean, how did you show, where did you just showed it to the senior center?
Yeah, no, we did it via social media. We had a lot of coverage in Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And also we have a website, and in the centers, we have these screens going on, you know, during the daytime. So we put important information there as well. So we're bombarding people with these messages all the time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Nancy, and thank you for your questions and follow-up, Linda. This was just a little 5-minute debrief session, so I'm going to wrap it up. And again, thank everybody for their input. We've got some good messages in the chat for you to observe. But I'm going to hand back to Alicia for the next piece of our meeting.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alicia with the Urban Institute, and to introduce our very exciting speaker. So Dr. Tracy Wharton is Principal Research Scientist in the Washington, D.C. office of Nnphi. In this position, she focuses on health equity, racial disparities in healthcare access, and evaluation support for public health partners nationwide. In addition to her research and evaluation credentials, Dr. Wharton is a licensed clinical social worker with more than 20 years of experience in medical social work, geriatrics, end-of-life, compassion fatigue, and trauma. Previously, she was a tenured associate professor in the School of Social Work with a joint appointment to the College of Medicine at the University of Central Florida. She coordinated the social work track of the Public Affairs PhD program and co-led the nationally recognized Nnphi Clinic, which provided outpatient healthcare to a deeply underserved community in the west central portion of Florida. Dr. Wharton was the principal investigator for the Florida REACH program to advance telehealth-based training to families living with Alzheimer's disease or other dementias, and also for the Social Work, Health Education, and Leadership National Program. And that being said, I will pass it off to Tracy Wharton. Oh, you're on mute, Tracy.
Okay, it says it's off mute. Can you hear me now? Okay, sorry about that. Thank you so much for that introduction. Even when you send the introduction, it's always a little humbling to hear your bio read out loud, so I appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen, I think. Let me share screen too, because actually I'm going to want to hopefully show you a video at some point. And I just want to say that if you see me looking off to the left, I have another screen here, and let me share this. You should be looking at my, are you seeing the slide itself? You're not seeing like my working screen? You're seeing the slide. Perfect. Okay, great. I have multiple screens going, and I have my notes over here. So if I'm looking off to the left, it's not that I'm trying to avoid anybody's gaze, it's that I'm looking at my notes. So I want to start by acknowledging my positionality and offering an apology. I am not the person who was supposed to be presenting today. Tesari Elamine Champion, who was supposed to be the presenter, has been called away for a family emergency, and Nnphi Huang has been called to a conference today. And so y'all are stuck with me. So I am the project director for the larger CDC-funded vaccine equity project through Nnphi. You can see our logo here. And this is our very cool graphic for the program, where we have multiple sites. I've had the great privilege of spending a good amount of time with Project Healings with each of our sites, and learning a lot from all of these different project partners and community-based sites. Excuse me, and I am really privileged to share their story with you today. I hope that I'm going to be able to do this justice. I want to share this logo for Project Healings. I do also want to say that if you do want to visit their website for Project Healings directly, it's projecthealings.info. They are in Minneapolis, or they're in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Minneapolis and St. Paul, Twin Cities, Minnesota. And I hope that you're going to tune in on September 23rd and hear from the team directly. We're going to have a much larger, much longer in-depth discussion where they're going to talk about the model and all of this that I'm going to present to you today. The team is going to have a facilitated panel discussion for about an hour and a half on that day. We will record it. So if you can't make it, you can reach out and we'll be able to share that with you. And there isn't a sign up for it. There's just a link. So we'll drop that link in the chat, bookmark that, stick it on your calendar, and please join us on the 23rd. Of course, I have to acknowledge our funder and appreciation for the funding opportunities to do this work. We're all funded under this 2113 opportunity, I think. So I'm not going to belabor that. Okay, so I'm going to leave this here. You guys should be looking at a screen that has some pictures of 6 people on it, right? Okay, great. Now, we do have a lot of data about shots in arms and events and people served, and I am not going to share that with you today. So please do reach out if you're interested. If you want to know more about that, check out the website. I'm happy to share that with you. But today I'm going to picking up on that storytelling theme, I'm going to tell a different story. This is a story about how a group of different people decided to get together and get to know one another and bring their communities together at the table. So this is a story about how 5 different, very different networks that were already established in this very large metro area, or 2 metro areas, right, Minneapolis, St. Paul, turned to help each other out and realized that there was a lot that they had in common and that they could do more with pooled resources. So let me back up and tell you how this started. So, and again, I'm doing my best to represent this, so y'all please bear with me. Back at the beginning of the pandemic, y'all remember we were all like sewing masks and people were pulling out fabric and sharing things. The Chamber of Commerce, the Chinese American Chamber of Commerce in St. Paul, or in the Twin Cities rather, started getting calls from some of their members saying, hey, you know, we have a number of businesses who use these masks as part of their business. They're pretty much shut down. We're hearing other people need them. Can you help us get these to the people that need them? And they said, sure, we can do that. So they started cold calling all the nonprofits around the region and said, hey, we have masks. Do you need masks? And so they started meeting people that way. And then they had members of the chamber who were restaurants and food related businesses who said, caterers and stuff, who said, we have all this food that's been spoiling. There must be people who need this or want this. Can you help us distribute this? And so the chamber said, sure, yeah, we can do that. And so they started calling nonprofits in the area and said, hey, we got food, and distributing things that way. Over the course of that, they started to get to know one another and make these connections with groups that they hadn't necessarily worked together at that point. They just kind of knew one another. They kind of coexisted. And this happens a lot where we all have our organizations and we're focused on the Chinese American group or the, this group or that group or this church group, and we kind of stay in our silos sometimes. And what happened was the silos were starting to break down as people were meeting one another to start sharing those resources. And then the funding opportunity came out. And what happened was these 6 people reached out to one another and went, you know what? Why don't we do this? It's a good chunk of money. We gave pretty big grants to our sub-awardees. Big chunk of money. Why don't we work together and we'll put in together for this, right? And so the importance of the 6 people that you see on the screen became the leaders of what became Project Healings. The importance of relationships and trust became the very center of this work. And as these relationships developed, common threads began to appear. I'm sorry, I see somebody's putting something in the chat and I didn't have that open. So, oh, okay, it's the link. Now I have the chat open. So if you do have questions or comments, or I'm talking too fast or you don't understand, please put it in the chat. Now I have it open. I'll try to keep an eye on it. Oh, I'm sorry. I think that's blocking. Let me move that. So you're not seeing my chat, right? You're just seeing the screen. Okay, sorry about that. So I want to share with you my experience of doing the site visit. Now, I visited up there for a site visit, and we all know, anyone who's ever done a site visit knows that groups pull out their very best and show you all the greatest things. And so, like, we know that, right? So yeah, there's that. But I had the opportunity to go and really sit down and have some great dialogue and spend some time there. I spent a couple of days up there. And when I got there that first day, there was a tea ceremony to welcome me and my colleague, Emily Costello from Nnphi. We went in pairs. And so we had this tea ceremony, and then we go in and we're at the Chamber of Commerce, and there's a dinner. And so there's these 2 huge round tables, like the big kind, with big lazy Susan in the middle, right? For sharing food. And I want you to picture this, right? So I'm sitting at the table, and to my left was Angie. I'm pointing the screen as if you can see what I'm pointing at, but Angie here on the screen, who is a Taiwanese American woman. She's a little bit older than me. I'm 50. So she's a little bit older than me. And then a much older Chinese American man sitting with her. Next to them was Sanib, who you see here on the screen, a Hmong shaman, and his wife, who's also a community leader. Across the table from me were 2 Black men, Tezzy and Tony, who lead an organization that supports LGBTQIA, trans individuals in particular, and housing insecure young adults. To my right were Pastor Donnell Bratton, an African-American Christian pastor, and his wife, who heads a secondary school for young men, Anita Gate, a Dakota woman. This is all at this table, right? Anita Gate, a Dakota woman who is a community educator and leader, and Rodolfo Gutierrez, who is the head of the evaluation for Project Healings, the evaluation team, and a leader in Latina advocacy in the area. So what was really notable about this particular, and the other table was equally as interesting, right? Like people that you kind of look around and you're like, wow, this is quite a group, right? What was really notable about this group was that these people really knew one another, right? You know, when you go into a room and you know people are like, they know each other, right? This was not the first time they were doing this. They were cracking jokes, they were passing plates, they were getting up to refill glasses for each other. They had inside jokes, right? So they had very clearly spent time together, and this event was not unique for them, despite my presence there. Over dinner, which lasted a long time, right? We were there for hours. There were a lot of really interesting conversations. They shared, for example, I'm going to share a couple of these things with you, that even though Hmong and Christian belief systems are very different, The importance of creating space for religion and spirituality as dialogues when we talk about health and vaccination was extremely important in some communities, and they had that in common. They shared that there were many common threads, including mistrust of healthcare systems, vaccine dosing and safety concerns that kept coming up, some epistemologically different frameworks for understanding health and medicine and well-being, right? And also in common, a lot of historical trauma from forced migration. So there are many groups across the Twin Cities area that share this history of forced migration, particularly groups that were very tied to the land, right, where they had been. It was very interesting to talk to Nnphi and Anita and listen to this dialogue about the forced removal from land across a group that was still standing on that land and a group that had been forced off of their land somewhere else in the world and was now standing here. So these were things that people had in common. And when they started sharing these common threads, they recognized that even though the details and the context were really very different races, different ethnicities, different languages, different cultures, different beliefs, that there was a lot that they had in common that they could build on. And so from that those shared commonalities, they began to build, they identified the shared need for health literacy education and taking a broad perspective to health among their communities. I mentioned this in our breakout room, focusing not just on COVID, but also on cancer, HIV, hepatitis, nutrition, social determinants of health, right? They all agreed across this group as they were creating their work plan that there are many different ways of communicating about the vaccine and about COVID, and that messaging really needed to be created within the communities rather than adapted from the dominant mainstream. Rather than trying to tweak things and make them culturally appropriate, that we needed to build things from these communities, and that there could be some cross-cutting, and then go the other way, right? Tweak it for different communities. I'll talk about that more in just a moment. So I think I can advance the slide. There we go. So this group, as I mentioned, it was already 5 existing networks that came together around the table, and they realized that one of the advantages that they had in working together was pooling their resources. I know there's a lot on this slide, so forgive me for that, but these are some screenshots from some of the media that they created. One of the things that they did, which is a great example of how this worked, was that Tezzy's group, right, the young adults, had a number of young people who wanted to learn marketing and communications type of stuff. And Angie's group, which Angie also works with the Asian Media Access Group, had a lot of opportunity and resources and training materials. And so they partnered. And so Project Healings trained, they actually did 2 cohorts. They did 10 and then they did 17 young adults who then created materials in their heritage languages, addressing points that were brought up in their communities for immediate use related to COVID. So I want to show you really quickly. Here's hoping this works and you can hear these. So these are screenshots from a couple of the videos. I'm going to show you Khadijah's, but the other one I'm going to show you is not Fra. It's another young person here. I want to show you this. These are 30-second to 1 minute. Can you see that? Can you see and hear this?
That's what I thought. Like, I did not trust it at all. I was like, no, because and my goddad worked at the pharmacist, and he works with the vaccine. And once I scholarships to get it because I have asthma and a whole bunch of other problems, and I'm premature, so it's like high risk. So they want me to stay safe. People want to get the vaccine, they usually say the same thing I say. They say they got sick for a night. Some people just say their arm was just sore.
Did I share the sound? I think so. Okay, I'm going to share one more and hopefully, yes, it is the Together at the Table meeting. That link above, that's just the link that there's no sign up. So that's the link to join at the right time. I'm going to try the second one. I think we'll see how this works this time, okay? These are very short. I'm trying to share with you these are a couple of the media materials that these young people created, and this was really a win-win, right? So these young people gained this training, which are marketable skills, which are things that they wanted to move forward in their careers. I was trying to get subtitles, and there are subtitles if you go to the website and watch them, but I can't figure out how to turn them on here. It wasn't working. Usually, I've never had this problem in Zoom before. It wasn't working for me today, so I really do apologize. I'm going to try this again, and I'll see if I can get subtitles. The links, I'm happy to share this PowerPoint. The links are there, okay, let's see. Well, come on. There we go.
What we got was when there were some symptoms with their kids, they would call the COVID hotline. And when that happens, it's all in English. And here's a mom who doesn't know any English. The only thing she knows is hello and goodbye. And then you couldn't just take the kid and get him tested. You actually had to call ahead. So we even did a whole tutorial again one day in our office, telling the parents that this is the protocol. This is what you have to do. You had to be in their level. You have to talk and have that respect. Let's never give any flyers to anybody. Let's talk to them. Let's literally look at the flyers and script it out. Tell them this flyer says this, but here I'm telling you.
And one thing I want to tell you about these videos is you can see these are all short, and you've seen two. They actually ended up creating, you should be looking at the main PowerPoint again, right? Yeah? Okay, great. Sorry for any technical difficulties there. These are two of about 30 or 35. I think it's somewhere between 30 and 35 videos that this group of young people created in 15 different languages. You just saw two in English, obviously, but if you go to the website, there are a number in different languages. So I want to show you some of the other materials that were created. Oh, sorry, this is their mission that they identified. This is about vaccination. Obviously, the funding is for adult vaccination, right? It's also about connectivity, trust, and systemic change designed intentionally to end inequities for Black, Indigenous, and other persons of color living in Minnesota. And these strategies are going to look very familiar to you. They are very much what many of us are doing, detailing those barriers, really unpacking those messengers. I'm going through these very quickly because this is the stuff you've all been doing, right? Understanding that cultural hesitancy, message creation, which I already mentioned, campaigns, and cultural events, and really building those partnerships. Now, the cultural events became very important because they really wanted to be able to connect people beyond just let's talk about a vaccine, right? So building these relationships across communities and making that visible. Hey, look, we partnered on this and we're getting to know one another. We share this space together in the community. Here are a few of the other things. So one of the other things that they did was they created these stories, and they worked with a communications company called Spitfire Solutions on this. The leaders that you saw on the slide before came together and would bring these, here are the things I'm hearing in the community, here are the questions I keep getting asked, here are the things that are big concerns in the community. And they would create these articles that would go out in these newsletters. And so they did 6 of them. And it was a mix of scientific info, community voice, an interview with someone, and directly addressing these points that were coming up in the community. And then they would translate them into at least 15 different languages every time, and then disseminate these through all of their different networks. And then they would go up on the website. So these are some screenshots from the website. This is 1 or 2 of these that are up there. And you can see they also would link to some of the resources in different languages over here on the left. So this is the Project Healing, from the Project Healing's website, right? And so it was really a great partnership to get that information out there regularly, in addition to building these events where they were all showing up together to really get to know each other, in addition to let's get everybody vaccinated. So when I said, what have we learned from this? These are some of the things that they talked about, right? The importance and centrality of those relationships. It wasn't just that, oh gosh, we introduced Angie to this community and therefore she can go in. It was that Angie was able to work with these young people because Tezzy knew them. And Tezzy introduced Angie, and Angie was now a trusted person because they trusted Tezzy. And so they were able to build those relationships and get to know one another. It was a sort of networking approach to this, right? Helping people get to know one another across communities, identifying those shared goals and building that shared work plan. The other thing that was really important here, and I'm seeing the time, so I'm going to go pretty quickly, were the challenges of working together and being very honest and committing to being very honest about when there were challenges, when we were having glitches, and when it was difficult to work with one another, or when there were misunderstandings, and really committing to being honest and being willing to ask questions, being willing to screw up, being willing to own that, and be honest with one another. And that really is what made this work, right? Because we've got groups that just really very divergent beliefs and ways of moving through the world, all sitting together at this table, right? There's a lot in this model. I'm showing this to you. I'm not going to go through this in detail. Please do come to the thing on the 23rd. They're going to talk about this a lot more, but this is one thing that they developed. It's built on, some of this should look pretty familiar, social emotional learning, cognitive intelligence learning models, very similar to that. But one of the principles that underlies this is that rather than talking about cultural competence, which really has this premise of potential like success or failure, right? They didn't want to talk about cultural competence. They wanted to talk about cultural intelligence. We often sometimes will use in my profession of social work, we talk about cultural humility. They built this on cultural intelligence. And this is one of the things that they've been working on to design this together. So these pink sort of salmon colored circles that you see on the left and right are identifying the two levels that this really comes in at, right? So there's an individual level where we are called on to reflect on our own identities and our own interactions with the world, and the agency level when we talk about intervening and implementing different kinds of programs. And the first thing that they identified that everybody has to do, and again, I'm gonna go through this real quick because I'm already at like 20 minutes right now, is that these things in the blue boxes over here to the left are the things that you really have to assess and unpack and identify where people are coming from. That gives you the ability to understand that basic understanding about awareness of culture, the dimensions of their knowledge, right? What do I know about the Hmong way of understanding the world and health and wellness and so on, right? And then the ability, that skill set is equally important, right? The ability to say, I really have no idea what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm getting into, and to be humble about that and willing to learn. We've all seen probably some version of this iceberg here in the middle, that the identities that we present to the world at any given moment are just sort of the tip of the iceberg, and so much of it, the depth of it really can go down. And then when we begin to think about implementing things, these principles in these sort of teal boxes over here to the right are really those places that become very, very important. Rediscovering ourselves in the mirror of others' perceptions, changing that mindset. And then one of the other principles here that I'm just going to point to is this biculturalism. Being bicultural, knowing that we move through the world in different ways, and that is, we're not one thing or another, we are multicultural beings no matter where we are. So the individual and agency level, well, if I can advance, I said this thing at the top already, but that there are multiple ways that these are both independent and overlapping ways in which we implement programs, that when we're doing something that's appropriate or specific, we can also do things that are bicultural or multicultural. And accessibility really is a multi-layered thing, right? It's not just about getting something to where someone can be. It's also about appropriate language, appropriate lack of jargon, images and celebrations and recognizing timing all play into accessibility. So
1 minute.
1 minute, okay. Virus doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care what we look like or what language we speak. Letting go of egos, being willing to pivot as this thing has unfolded, and share with one another and support one another. The commitment to that, to being where they needed to be together, is really what made this work. Accepting ambiguity is something they keep bringing up, and advancing equity together by this commitment to being honest and being willing to work. Please check out the website. Please come to the longer discussion. And again, I jumped in at the last minute on this, so I hope I've done this justice. yeah, I'll leave it at that. Please reach out and I'm happy to share these slides.
Thank you. And that was an amazing job, particularly since you're a pinch hitter. I know how hard that is, so thank you. And just amazing work that you guys are doing. So I am really excited to go to the longer session. We were hoping to have time for Q&A, but decided not to do that because I really wanted Tracy to get through as much as she could because it was an amazing presentation. But I think it also gives you a sense of what COPs are like and what they can possibly bring and share and come to the table. We were hoping, that maybe there would be interest in having other broader conversations together with all the COPs together, because I think is, it's great that Tracy kind of ended on that bicultural aspect, but also the idea that much of the work that we're doing can be shared and strategies can be shared. And so if people are interested in having more of these cross meetings, then definitely let us know. I'm talking really fast now because I'm trying to be mindful of time. We did have some poll questions, but I don't think we're going to get to the poll per se, but maybe if people could answer in the chat if they would like to have events like this more often in the future. Definitely reach out to let us know if you're not part of a COP but would like to be part of a COP. Don't forget to put your name in that Google form to get the free Starbucks gift card to kind of rest and relax. And am I missing anything, Kristen, or anyone else as we just hit one?
Just, I guess, what you'd like to see us do. If there's any events that you'd like to see us host in the COPs or topics, or let us know in the chat.
So somebody asked me if they could have info about the chat, and I see, thank you, Alicia, for putting that in there. That is the link. It's not a sign up, just like it's a Zoom meeting like this. So just tune in at that time. This panel is going to give more information on this.
Wonderful.
Thank you for dropping the link. You're faster than I am.
And I'll leave it open for a little bit just so people can get the link and sign on to the Google Sheet. But otherwise, we want to be mindful of your time. And it is 1 o'clock. So really want to thank everyone for coming to the meeting and sharing and being present. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.